Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Mornings with Mando, where I just walk you through some of the daily events and go over some current news stories that are happening in Texas today. Hopefully, you're enjoying a nice ride to work right now, or maybe you're just enjoying a nice cup of coffee, waking up. Either way, sit back, relax, and I got it from here. The first story that we're going to be going into here is that a park in Arlington, Texas has closed due to 3 separate incidences of children getting bitten by a coyote. The coyote has been reported to have been captured. This happened at Parkway Central Park on Saturday, Monday, and Tuesday. This is what Fox 4 reported. The 3 children were bitten in separate incidents at the park playground or in the parking lot. One witness says that he bit the boy and was trying to pull him into the woods, I think. Another witness said that all of a sudden I hear another mom go, "Oh my God!" and the dog is biting that kid. She runs and screams at the dog and throws her shoe at it, but it was a coyote. All 3 children have been treated for their injuries and released from the hospital. They will receive post-exposure rabies treatment, the city said. A lot of people don't realize how much coyotes are in pretty much every single city. They are almost the rats of the dog world. They populate at an incredible rate, and they are scavengers, and they are an extremely intelligent species of wolf, basically, an extradited wolf. Public safety is our priority, and the city of Arlington had not previously experienced any coyote attacks. Yeah, it doesn't seem to happen very frequently, but I'm not surprised that it happens at all. Code Compliance Director Brian Daughtry said in a press release, "Should you encounter wildlife, be sure to not engage with them and definitely do not feed them. Should you feel threatened, be sure to make yourself as large as possible and appear intimidating. You can also bring whistles, air horns, and walking sticks as an added deterrent. Generally speaking, I'm always carrying around air horns, so don't worry. I've covered my bases." Yeah, and I assume you have to put the coyote down. The city has installed barricades at park entrances, and digital message boards will be placed along the park perimeter to notify the community about coyote activity. The Arlington School District was also alerted about coyote activity after a 911 call reported a coyote following pedestrians on Wednesday. Yeah, times are getting tough. I guess maybe those are going to start hunting humans. An animal control officer and a police officer were in the area Thursday morning for pedestrian safety when they spotted the coyote, and they said charged at them. Together, the officers captured and secured the animal. The coyote will be humanely euthanized. Yep, according to a city Facebook post, and taken to Texas Health and Human Services in Austin for rabies testing. The park will remain closed until further notice. Good. Unfortunately, we're going to see a lot more of these sorts of things happening. Like the more that the wildlife is in the cities, they tend to get a little bit less sensitive to human presence, and like this one reported that the coyote charged the officers. So yeah, that's definitely going to be something I think we see a little bit more frequently. And it probably happens more often than it gets reported. People just getting bit by or having coyote interactions in general. Something that's kind of interesting about coyotes is when you hear them like barking in the night or howling, they're doing like a roll call. And so if they don't hear back from all of their pack, the female goes into heat, and she will then she'll then start mating more, and she will overcompensate and produce more pups than were lost in the roll call. So it's almost impossible ever to eradicate coyote presence completely. So they're a pretty interesting animal. I find them to be very interesting anyway. All right, and the next story that we're going to be covering is former North Texas elected leaders back Nikki Haley for president. We're still sticking with her. Former state Senator Florence Shapiro of Plano is hoping Republicans and independents will give Nikki Haley a serious look for president in the upcoming Texas primary. "I just found somebody I really, really liked." Former Fort Worth Mayor Betsy Price agrees. "I love this gal. She's not just about politics. She's about public service first and foremost." Price and Shapiro and Stacey Blakely of Dallas, a volunteer for Haley's campaign, are looking forward to Haley holding a campaign rally in, Gillies, Dallas, Thursday night. Her event comes 1 year to the day after she entered the race for the White House. Now Haley, the former South Carolina governor and U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, is the only other major Republican candidate in the race aside from the frontrunner, former President Donald Trump. That's about as much of that story as I really care to read. My personal opinion is Nikki is a warmonger, and I'm not. That would never be something I could get behind. That's my personal opinion. If you disagree, comment, like, and subscribe, and we can debate it. But that's my 2 cents, and this is my podcast, so I can say what I want. Another big story that just came out, Texas A&M students and faculty in Qatar slam decision to close Middle East campus. So students and faculty at Texas A&M University, Qatar's branch, are slamming the Texas A&M University System Board of Regents' abrupt decision last week to wind down the Doha campus after more than 2 decades. At the Texas A&M Faculty Senate meeting Monday, several professors from Qatar called for more answers and a clear transition plan for staff and students there, many of whom they say are devastated by the decision. Our students can't understand how local Texan politics can unilaterally determine a weighty decision about a very successful campus that excels in education without any discussion or negotiation. Brittany Bounds, a history professor at the Qatar campus, that was her interview. I just said it with a little bit more intensity. She noted that the move is especially confusing to the campus community since the school renewed its contract with the state-run Qatar Foundation in 2021, extending the teaching agreement for another 10 years. So it would have done until 2031. But that something that this is, I guess I just don't understand because it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. They have 4 years before the campus closes. It doesn't close officially until 2028. And so there's a bunch of programs that are going to be involved that are helping relocate faculty and students to other universities. Part of this from the Texas Tribune, they talk about how they're afraid that it's going to impact the freshman body since they had expectations of going to college there and all this stuff. I just don't think that that's necessarily that big of a deal. I also personally feel like that's not that controversial of a thing to do, especially at a time where, aren't the leaders of Hamas in Holiday Inn at Four Seasons in Qatar? So I don't know. I think that that's a pretty good reason to start trying to cut some ties. My personal opinion. The next story I'm going to cover is the judge is skeptical about Texas law that lets police arrest migrants over illegal entry. A federal judge on Thursday voiced concerns over a Texas law that would give police broad authority to arrest migrants on charges of illegal entry starting in March, saying it would be a nightmare if the U.S. became a patchwork of states enforcing different immigration laws. Well, that I agree with. I think that there should be, but actually, yes and no. Because I believe every state should have a little bit of say on how it runs its stuff, but there should also be a unilateral there should be some laws that just are about across the board. What laws those are, I don't know. I'm not the person to decide that. I'm just a news reporter. That turns us from the United States of America into a confederate of states, said the U.S. District Judge David Ezra, who did not immediately issue a ruling. That is the same thing the Civil War said you can't do. Yeah, but it's not the Civil War time anymore, and there's a whole lot more people and a whole lot different problems going on right now. I don't think you can really call back and try to equate to a time that was, a little over 100 years ago. Ezra is considering a lawsuit filed by the U.S. Justice Department in what is the first legal test of what the opponents have called the most dramatic attempt by the state to police immigration since a 2010 Arizona law that was partially struck down by the Supreme Court. It is among several courtroom battles Texas is fighting with President Biden's administration over how far the state can go to try to prevent immigrants from crossing the border. I think that having the ability just to indiscriminately pull people over just because you think that they might be that's causes for harassment. I know that happens. And that goes on. However, I do personally think that there is a much better system that needs to be in place in what's currently going on. What that is, I couldn't tell you. I just know that what's happening now is not working, and it's allowing for a lot of different problems to manifest. The judge remained skeptical during the nearly 3-hour hearing in Austin, often sharply questioning the lawyers defending the law that was signed by Republican Governor Greg Abbott. Ezra, who was appointed by President Reagan, so long ago. Again, we have so many old people just sitting in these offices. Did not specify when he would rule, but said he hoped to give enough time for any appeals before the law takes effect March 5th. I don't know. I think that there's just going to be a lot of issues with this kind of stuff because there's so much that goes on with immigration that is very political, and it's being used to weaponize a certain amount of fear. I just don't. I feel like everybody wants the same stuff, wants to live a happy life, wants to be able to feed their families and make a living. And I think that there are powers that be that are trying to make that a little less viable. That's my own personal opinion on that. But, what I like to do when it comes to these shows that get a little heavy, especially since you're just supposed to be going to work in the morning, I usually like to end on some good news. Let's just interject a good news story right now. Hold on 1 second. Oh, and there was something I did want to say about the whole Nikki Haley thing. For me, she has a very tough stance on North Korea, which I can't necessarily say is negative, but she's also very much so okay with the fact that we just bomb the crap out of Syria all the time. So, take it or leave it. If you want her to be president, go for it. I just don't think I think that's a mistake. But, it's all of our America. Alrighty. So here's some good news that's going on in Texas. Good news and human interest stories. Astros Ryan Presley surprised an 11-year-old boy with a front yard catch game. Also, a paramedic surprised a Spring Branch family after saving their mom's life. Oh, that's sweet. A Texan was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. Moves were made to protect bighorn sheep and disabled dog in Lubbock made global pet calendar. Oh, a disabled dog in Lubbock made a global pet calendar. Well, that's kind of dumb, but hey, it's a happy news story. The Nobel Peace Prize was created by a dude who was known for creating dynamite, and he kind of made the Nobel Peace Prize so that he could have a little bit of saving grace in his reputation instead of just being associated with the stuff that's just meant to destroy and explode. It's pretty interesting, Interesting history. Alrighty, everybody. You know what? I think I've gone on long enough. A little bit of a shorter episode, but that's not a bad thing. Who knows? Maybe your drive to work was a little bit quicker this time, or maybe you have enough time to now squeeze in another little bit of a podcast, or maybe another audiobook, or whatever you do. Maybe listen to another song. If you're looking for anything else to listen to, I would recommend checking out the S Bros podcast, where me and my brother, we break down just movies. It's not about anything in particular about movies. It's just two dudes sitting down talking about movies that they like, that they don't like. Feel free to like and subscribe, and until next time, everybody, stay breezy.